how important do you think is identifying newer audiences?
Create loyalties over a period of time, and maybe also convert, create that or build those habit forming products over a period of time. It's not easy because any habit cannot be built overnight. So it's going to take a lot of time and it needs patience.
We have about 1% of our user paying for our news as an active subscriber at any point in time. But 2.5% subscribers have already paid, which means for every 100 subscribers, I have 150 whom we have not been able to retain. So retention is a large challenge for us.
How I look at it as, for subscription, there are 3 important pillars. One is access, second is curation, and third is experience. So as long as you're able to get these 3 pillars right, that why would people subscribe to any particular news outlet, right?
Having a positive mindset, like they should be knowing that yes, there will be multiple failed attempts, but how can they keep trying on different new experiments and try and work out on that and then succeed in that. So I think having that mentality is very important.
Journalists don't really care about the reader, right? We care about our story, our headlines and all of that. We really don't think about who's finally going to read the story. That is the skill set we need to develop now. That understanding, when if you have, then I think you'll be successful in the subscription journey, because finally we have to really take the reader or your consumer seriously. I think that's a skill set a lot of journalists or upcoming journalists should start looking at reader behavior.
Thank you everyone for coming in. I can already see a lot of yawning faces. And I think it's fitting that the title of the last session has the word fatigue in it. But we'll try to keep it as short and snappy as possible. I think between all of us on the panel, we've mostly worked on subscription. So this is more going to be an inside trade chat. So if we end up boring you, please wave your hand or something so that we know we are not talking amongst ourselves. So Nandu, I'd like to start off with you. Upstairs we were discussing, from what I understand with subscription, right? Like eventually it is a game of being a differentiator, right? Because if you're providing something that other publishers are providing, you're not really going to get that 500 or 3,000 rupees from the subscriber. In that aspect, either you make new products that are niche products, or you identify new audiences, right? So for example, we've seen it in NYT's case, right? They've identified vertical, right? So for example, there's a gaming vertical, there's a cooking vertical. In Express, since you work with Express, you guys have a vertical on parenting. So my question is, how important do you think is identifying newer audiences? Because when I am working with Newslaundry, we probably need, say, 50,000 subscribers, right? Also because our average subscription ticket size is a lot higher. But at Express, you probably need 10x that number to be even closer to be viable on subscription. So where does new niche products and identifying newer audiences fit in that strategy?
Yeah, so the way I look at it is that subscription, at some point has to tap loyalty, and it cannot be one loyalty. So you need to have maybe 100 loyalties that you try and cash in on. So there is the loyalty of Express at large. There is a loyalty around, let's say, big bylines that we have had for many years. There is loyalty around the kind of reportage we do on certain topics, maybe which we do. There will be new loyalties that we will create over many other things over time, right? Like for instance, like when we had this focused approach on digital about 10 years ago, and then we created a lot of new verticals in entertainment, lifestyle, technology, where we thought we will try and do it in the Express way. And even there we have created loyalties. We are converting on all these loyalties also. So you will also come to a point where we will now have to go out of what is our comfort zone into things maybe which traditionally news media hasn't done. Like if you talk about crossword and Sudoku, it's always been a newspaper thing. So it's an extension. But you will also have to think about many other things, right? Like, which, can create loyalties over a period of time, and maybe also convert, create that or build those habit forming products over a period of time. It's not easy because any habit cannot be built overnight. So it's going to take a lot of time and it needs patience.
Correct. Pradeep, so I have a similar question for you, but I want to ask the opposite. So in a lot of cases, either you make a new product or you know there is an audience that we cater to. So in Hindu's case, Hindu has always been a paper that a lot of civil service aspirants read, right? Like it's synonymous with that identity. So for a lot of publishers, also doubling down on that identity, right? So for example, again, to give an example, if we are Newslaundry and we cover media, we would want to cover media a lot more extensively so that we can own that beat. So is that the case for you guys also? And have you had any experience where you have tried to maybe say capture more of that audience to sort of get more subscribers or get newer subscribers for that matter?
So see, as far as Hindu is concerned, our biggest challenge is like retention, right? So we have about 1% of our user paying for our news as an active subscriber at any point in time. But 2.5% subscribers have already paid, which means for every 100 subscribers, I have 150 whom we have not been able to retain. So retention is a large challenge for us. And I think new audiences, which you are talking about, is important. So recently we tied up with Symbol. So Symbol is basically a pay later, buy now, pay later kind of a service, which is very popular with Gen Z, right? So that's one experiment which we are doing, that does it really translate us for us. We have doubling down on the institutional subscription. So we have a couple of thousand subscribers in form of universities, IIMs and all that, which are doing, But there is I think for a Hindu kind of a product, we are at a very, very low level of subscriber base, which I feel 1% in my opinion is very, very low. So there is but for this audience, we keep doing many things. So like for this audience, like we are trying to, how do we further strengthen our relationship with, say, a student community? What are the challenges which the students are facing, right? So if you will see, you go to our site, we have, say, a product like a daily quiz. Now, daily quiz was basically came from the response from the readers who wanted to understand. It's not really a deep quiz, but if you know there are 10 questions which you can answer. We created products like so we have recently launched an international edition for the Hindu, which is only a digital product. In my opinion, it is the best newspaper in the country. I'm biased, okay, but yeah, I am biased. There is no doubt.
Among the best.
So like international edition is a new product which we have launched. So there is a lot of work which we are trying to do to engage the student which is already there, or for that matter, the various community which we have a very strong communities, right? We have like crossword is one of there are so many clubs around India which try to do crossword of Hindu every day. So when I came, I was very, very bullish that this will work. So I launched a 3,000 rupees product as a subscription. It was an utter disaster failure, right? So, so what we have realized is that, see, like the things which people are reading, are they ready to pay online? We do not know. Only thing which we have successful is that we have keep on doing experimentation. We have a lot of failures. We keep on doing things, and fail-safe culture is what we have been able to build. In this fail-safe culture, we try new things. So right now we are trying food. We are trying things. God only knows whether they will work, but we'll keep trying.
So quickly, Pradeep, you mentioned Gen Z. Does Gen Z pay? Because from the numbers that I have seen, Gen Zs are not paying for news. Maybe there are people in this room who are actually, because in general, not only they're not paying for news, the interest in news also is abysmally low. Okay, it is a target audience that in general does not do very well with news. But I want to understand, because in general, with any product or any marketing effort, there's always an attempt to capture that market. But in news, we are well aware that that's not really a target audience that pays for news. So do you think it's still worth trying, or do you think we are way past where we have to make peace that Gen Z is not probably going to pay for news, at least right now?
See, newspaper in education is at least a 50-year-old concept. All the legacy news organizations world over had this newspaper which used to go to schools because you wanted them to start early, right? A lot of the readers which have come in to us today also, they always talk about how they started reading early in the age. So as far as effort is concerned, definitely you should put effort. Will it succeed? God knows. We will keep trying is the only thing which we know, right? So like maybe Symbol will not work, something else will work. So I know for sure, ये नहीं चलेगा तो कुछ तो चलेगा. चलाते रहना is the only thing which we try to bother about.
See, this is where what you get when you work with Hindu. You always have so much resources that you can keep trying. But Niyati, so you worked with BQ Prime. Both Nandu and Pradeep have sort of largely worked with legacy media organization. with again BQ Prime, Newslaundry, Scroll, there are a bunch of digital organizations who initially started with subscription, right? So for the longest time, if you wanted a certain kind of deep dive, long form content, original reportage, these were the outlets you would go for, right? But now subscription is no more, the cool, the upcoming kid in the news media ecosystem. Everyone, every publisher worth its salt is asking for subscription more or less. So readers are increasingly making that choices. So in that kind of scenario for digital natives, how do you think they stand out? Because you work with BQ, do you think figuring out a niche where you're only covering business, does that help? Or I'm just trying to understand, where do digital natives fit in this hassle to stand out?
For something where you talk about niche, right? So it is definitely very important to first identify the audience. And then how I look at it as, for subscription, there are three important pillars. One is access, second is curation, and third is experience. So as long as you're able to get these three pillars right, that why would people subscribe to any particular news outlet, right? So are they getting access to content that's not available elsewhere? Are we answering that question or not? Second, are they getting curated content? So are we making their life easy by giving them what they want to read in their inbox, right? And then third is experience, that if they pay, do they get a better and a premium experience? So these three become very important when we're talking about subscription for a niche business, right? And then something like business, it's a little easier as compared to, I think, these two folks, because business, there is a direct ROI.
There is also transactional, right? For example, if you're a businessman and you track stocks,
so,
it's a lot more
if I'm
need-based.
investing in subscription, then I know that I can make a lot more from the knowledge that I'll acquire from that content. So for business, I think, yes, if we are answering the first three questions, then people are willing to subscribe, because ultimately they are able to use that knowledge and make more. So they see that value. It's very upright.
Correct. So Swetha, let me come to you. You have a very interesting bird's eye view, right? Because as part of Google and as part of Google News Initiative, you work with publishers across the board.
Yep.
And I know sustainability and business viability is one of the issues. Google has really worked across the world with different publication. How do you guys see subscription fatigue as an issue, specifically with what's happening in the India market, which is a price-sensitive market? Not a lot of people, there are a lot of research that at max this is a 100 crore market. So there's not it's not like a market where there's there's no end to the money. So in that scenario, how does Google looks at the issue, and what are the kind of programs you guys have run in the past that sort of address it?
Yeah, I think to start off with, the kind of programs we've run, right, specifically to help publishers. When I say publishers, it's not that we just work with the legacy publishers, but we've been working with startups, we've been working with digital natives. And for that, we partnered with FT Strategies, which is the subscription consulting firm of Financial Times. So we partnered with them last year, and in fact, in the last 1 year, we finished with 2 cohorts of Subscription Academy. So as a part of this program, what we did with FT Strategies is worked with a few set of publishers, trying to understand and help them, in terms of how can they kind of increase on their subscription? How can they increase? What are the different type of strategies that they should be, trying out to get more users? So I think the one thing that, we partnered with FT Strategies is because of the approach that the methodology that they follow, which is the North Star framework. Now, what is North Star framework? It is a methodology that FT Strategies kind of, tried to gain 1 million subscribers. This was way back in 2019. So as a part of this program, what we did along with FT Strategies is working with the publishers, trying to first build the North Star framework or goal for all of the publishers who are a part of it, trying out what are the different things that they can do to achieve these North Star goals. And again, as Pradeep and the others were talking, I think one of the biggest thing that we've been focusing on as a part of this program is trying out multiple experiments. Keep trying and seeing what works best, and then, try to, follow the other strategies that you have.
Makes sense. Nandu, let me come back to you. Again, how I look at subscription, a lot of it, like I said earlier, it works in a way whether or not you have a differentiator product. Now, the way legacy news media organizations, specifically newspaper, the way the content is structured, right? The content is structured more for volume, right? More for like to optimize it for advertisement, right? In that kind of a scenario, it's often a challenge, right? So, for example, again, Newslaundry, if we are publishing 10 articles a day, it's easier for us to sell that we'll only do X kind of coverage and we'll do a deep dive. So that's why you should give us money for it. Whereas in your case, not only you cover everything, for the longest time, your readers have been getting it for free. So I want you to shed some light that while the upside is that a legacy media organization may have more resources to throw at problems, but on the flip side, it's a lot more difficult for you to stand out as a differentiator, right? And to put content behind the paywall. Because a lot of people who have grown up reading, say, Express or Hindu, they'll be like, all this while we were paying like 7-8 rupees, which was, it was anyway not the cost of the paper. Why is it that we have to pay for content now? So if you could share, like, what are the challenges in terms of the legacy media to be a differentiator product?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is what you just mentioned, is that people think online is more expensive. Online isn't. The paper costs 10 rupees or 8 rupees a day. And an online subscription of any platform is like 1,000, 1,200, 1,300, which is a fraction of the print cost. But generally, the perception is that print is free, right? Because you really don't value it, because you're not paying a $200 like you have to pay an NYT or an FT, right? So that perception problem is there in India. Along with that, so as you rightly said, we have played volume, we have played bigger volumes, we have come down on volume. We still do about 400 stories a day, right? The volume part helps us with the advertising revenue, and that is still our primary revenue stream. But we have, being Express, we've always had a value part, right? Which is good enough to do subscriptions, right? And out of the 400, we would have a very significant percentage of content which falls into that volume, into that value part, right? But that volume also helps you with subscription. There are two ways to, very, very rudimentary explanation of subscription that I have is that you can block two things. One is you block the habit, and where volume helps you. So if you have a lot of volume and you have a lot of users who read a lot of content with you on a daily basis, you can block their habit, right? So volume helps you there, right? So if you do only one story a day, I cannot block habit. And you have a lot of, I would also want to do like a one story a day platform. I think it's great, right? Because it is very clear value, right? But on the value side, you are actually blocking intent. I want to read that story. And when you go to that story, it's blocked, it's behind a paywall. And that's what we do primarily now. But we can get into the other game also, which Hindu does very well, right? We don't do it. We do it, but it's so high, nobody sees it, right? Now, the other thing about this fatigue, right? So I'm not sure we are there yet in India, right? Because at least with Express, we do 400 stories a day. We get about 50 million visitors in a bad month, right? 80% of our visitors don't even know we have a paywall. Because they are coming only once, they'll never see a paywall unless they come and hit a premium story on their first visit, right? Which is very rare, right? So I don't know that we are far away from fatigue. Fatigue will happen because you have multiple subscriptions. Right, and you will have to juggle that. Okay, I'm spending this much on a month, every month on subscriptions. I need to switch that off to switch something on. So I think that is where the fatigue angle will come in India first.
Correct. Pradeep, coming to you, I know ePaper has been very successful for both Express and Hindu, and for as someone who works with a native digital, it does not make sense to me, right? That how in today's age. ePaper still works as a standalone subscription product. Forget bundling it with like online access or like physical paper access. So what is it about ePaper subscription that makes it such a sticky subscription product? Is it again linked to the fact that you cater to an audience that is prepping for civil service? They find it a lot easier to do it. But from what I know, it is the most sticky subscription product that you have. So why is it so? And like, if you could shed some light on the ePaper as a product.
So when I was given a responsibility for subscription, and when ePaper was added to me, I almost thought it like a punishment posting. I thought that, boss, kya kare, karna padta hai kind of a stuff. But very soon I was completely out. More than 50% of our subscription base comes from ePaper, right? Now, why it works, I personally think one of the big problems it solves it that even if you wanted to buy a Hindu in say some parts of the India, it was not available, right? And if it was available, it was generally late and all that. So at some level, I think geography problem gets solved by the digital in a very, very big way. And if you are a student anywhere in the country, of course, you were told that you have to read Hindu if you are appearing for any competitive exam, right? So that cohort was very nicely available to us, which is the student who cares about exam. And what is the problem with this student? The problem with this student is general studies is just one part of the entire syllabus they need to. They don't have the time for the 24/7 news cycle. They understand that there are some best minds in India, these editors, these editorial resources who will curate the most important stories for them which will appear in the paper next day. Right? So if I was a student, it makes a great sense for me to just go to those, like imagine there are these brilliant mind like Nandagopal, these people who create, I'm a salesman, so I don't try to, I was not good enough to get into editorial, so I'm doing sales, right? So there are some bright minds which create paper for you. And this paper is, is what a student gets. They understand these are the most important stories. They want slow journalism because at some level, in our life, we were, even in the paper era, you always wanted something, that feeling of finishing something, which is very, very difficult with digital. In digital, you are always feeling that overwhelming. And also, what are the most important? When I go to my website, I am not able to understand that what are the most important stories because they are changing at the speed of the time the users expect it to change. But ePaper, even as a consumer, I don't consume the Hindu website first thing in the morning. I consume the international paper of ePaper of Hindu, and it's a great product. During the day, I of course deal with the product because the paper doesn't get updated. So, in my opinion, that sense of getting a very good view of the world, ePaper works very, very well.
Correct.
Just to add on to that, right? I think Pradeep, I did see last week you had posted about the international ePaper. I think the special vertical for science, right, and specifically for students of schools and colleges. I think I'm just looking forward to hear, how has that worked out for you all, specifically having that science vertical.
So see, like Hindu as a every day other than Saturday, we have a one dedicated page for science. So there are certain areas we started realizing that we have a lot of advantage, and that's where we started building better relationships more by, So science page is something which we are seeing a lot of traction, right? So every day we publish one science page, we increase the coverage of science, right? There is an international which we do very, very well, 2 pages of world news every day. So see, in the printed world, it was very, very difficult to add pages because each page comes at a very expensive. So page is a divider. So basically print is a variable cost business, which means that for, let's say, for a 1 page, if an organization has to pay, say, 1 rupee, multiply by the circulation, of course, they pay about 25-30 paise per page, right? So that is the kind of cost structure which goes into. But here the cost structure is not that. So we are increasing. So like if you will see all our e-paper editions have more pages than what the printed paper is doing. So we are trying to add those pages because they are way more cheaper to add, and we can also satisfy a lot of demand. Right, so that's a science is one of the areas which I think that Hindu would be covering the maximum in this country, because of 6 full pages a week is the current coverage which we are doing.
Correct. I'm just looking at Nandu's face to respond to that claim. But Niyati, I want to zoom out because you worked with Savan also. Is there a difference with how news publishers look at subscription fatigue vis-a-vis how, say, OTT or music platforms look at it? Like, is there a fundamental difference there?
I think yes, absolutely. Like Nandu rightly said, for news, still we are getting there, right? Getting people into the habit of paying for news. Whereas for OTT now, it's kind of, that obvious statement that if you want to consume content, you have to pay. So that has reached that saturation that, okay, if I want to consume content, especially ad-free, then I have to pay. Now with Savan, the biggest challenge used to be that music is available everywhere. Again, that is very similar to news. So what is the differentiator? Now the differentiator was not the content, whereas with news, it can be content. There it was all about experience. That how you get better experience.
It was more product.
It was more product as compared to the content. Because can just give people early access to music, but you cannot keep it behind the paywall for a very long time. Whereas with news, explainers or something that is more of a point of view can always be behind a paywall. So there is a differentiator in terms of that, and also in terms of mindset, that for OTT, for music, for video, that I have to pay. So if users are more eager or more open, I wouldn't say eager, they never are, but yeah, they're more open to pay.
Correct. Do you agree with that, Swetha? Like, do you think, because I would like to disagree with that. Do you think like users are more likely or are more comfortable paying for OTT and like music apps vis-a-vis like news organizations?
I agree. At least, if you have to talk about the Gen Z audience who's out there, yes, they are. Because I think most of the time now we are traveling, we are on the go, right? So I think online is something that everyone is on. So I totally agree to what she says that, nowadays, at least if you see, I think we all prefer, subscribing to OTTs. And sometimes it is just because of a particular show that we may just subscribe to, say, for example, an Amazon. But there'll be some other good shows happening in all the other, OTTs also. So I've seen that a lot of them do subscribe just because, it's easy for us on the go, you're traveling, you can just watch content, you can consume content. So it works really well for us than the others.
Nandu, Pradeep, do you guys agree? Do you think this is a Gen Z specific problem? Because I would like to think that, again, within Gen Z, yes, they're more likely to pay for OTT and music. But as you go in higher age bracket, they'll probably more likely to pay for news because they understand the value and the difference it makes to democracy and society.
See, in my opinion, OTT had a great time during COVID. All of us were stuck at home. We had to watch something. The world outside was...
Digital media organizations also had a good time.
World outside was so difficult. You needed entertainment, so everybody ended up subscribing more than one or two, more than actually what they can consume. Now, all subscription fatigue which we are talking about actually is a result of that time. You ended up subscribing like I don't know what others also have it, but many a times I will sit in front of a television deciding that which OTT play to, and then after half an hour I'll shut it down without seeing anything. Right? Because it's so difficult to decide because there are now some 8-10 channels which I have subscribed, and they are so cheap that you don't even have to think about while subscribing. So it's definitely an easier decision. I think as far as Gen Z is concerned, I think like are they my view of looking at them is that are they even glued to television? In my opinion, lot of them are just like if I look at my niece, I think so initially when she was in college, I tried to give her a laptop. She said, no, this mobile is good enough. And I thought that how can somebody even work on mobile, right? So I think now even when they have laptops and all that, I think their primary consumption happens. Everything is on mobile. So as long as entertainment is available on mobile, I think Insta is way more addictive to the younger people than any OTT play, right? But then yes, if all these guys started charging, maybe, but they will be more easier for them to pay for entertainment.
Pradeep, if you're calling Instagram Insta, you've already cracked Gen Z for sure. So, Nandu, I want to come back to you. So, subscription fatigue is intrinsically linked to pricing, right? A lot of this fatigue, like Pradeep was saying, that because it's OTT subscriptions are cheap, so I've already subscribed to 2-3. It's happening with news also, right? And again, new subscriptions often might not be that cheap. So again, because you guys deal a lot with volume, how much does subscription fatigue play when you're trying to figure out the pricing, like for different products, for bundle products, etc.? Like, is it always at the back of your mind that because we need, say, like an 100x number, the pricing has to be less than a specific, whereas for again, a digital native organization, our pricing could be higher, right? Because we are not looking at it. So how conscious are you of pricing because of subscription fatigue?
Yeah, we are conscious about pricing, but I don't know subscription fatigue. I'll ask Pradeep this. He's been in this game for longer than me because we are still onboarding first-time subscribers, right? So that I don't know whether the fatigue angle really comes in now. And so we are looking at what is the right price at which a person, we know as we go down, more and more people will convert, but we don't want to. We have taken a conscious decision not to pull our price down too much. But Yeah, we are not looking at fatigue as such. We will, of course, look at what Hindu is pricing it at. Because we are in a way, like, I think the only place where we are direct, competition is on subscriptions, because we are catering pretty much to the same audience with UPSC and even the readership pan India, right? Like, Hindu is also very South Indian brand. We are a very North Indian brand, but we cater to both other sides of the country too. So yeah, of course we are looking at Hindu but subscription fatigue as such, I think we'll come to that point. But as Pradeep said, our biggest worry is retention, right? And there are so many factors at play here, like where, even if we give it 100 rupees, people are not able to renew because of, so many factors. Like India's made it so tough, in the environment is so tough to do an auto renewal kind of a thing, which is where subscription works across the world, right?
Correct. Anyway, thanks to the RBI guideline, recurring transactions.
Chitranshu, I think fatigue would probably, if you have to look at it right, it will be in holistic terms. As in, a user would be tired of managing all their subscription. There are so many that do I want to even subscribe to one new platform or not? Rather than just among news platforms, right? Because right now, people are still, they have enough people who have not subscribed to any news platforms at all. Whereas everyone in this room probably would have like
same
one
attention
subscription.
time also. If I only have an hour, I'll probably give it to Netflix or a news organization.
Yeah. So everyone in this room would have at least one subscription, right? Be it music or just video platforms or anything, but at least one. But news, maybe many of us would not have even a single subscription.
Correct.
If I can just add one point, it's, the subscription that you buy is not always for daily consumption. It's also like a backup. I'll come, I might need it next week, I'll hit a story, I'll hit something. So that fatigue angle is also like, I guess there's an arbitrage, within the customer also, that whether I really need to look at it, because, I need to keep that subscription for that rainy day.
Correct.
So let me add to it. See, like as far as pricing is concerned, there is no consideration of fatigue. Since we launched, we would have, our average yields are about 140 to 150% more than when we launched. In last year, we have increased our price dramatically. So we don't take into consideration fatigue. But in my personal opinion, fatigue is actually just, I will be very happy if it grows further very, very fast. Because what happens is, we have a fatigue of email, we have fatigue of news by, like an amount of alert, we have fatigue of advertisement, so each time when there is a fatigue, it follows by you're building your mental capability how to handle it.
And
over
very
a period
optimistic,
of time,
Pradeep.
Yeah. Okay.
That's really optimistic.
Yeah.
It also becomes, it also will mean that subscription is becoming very common, that the fatigue angle is kicking in, right?
Yeah.
It's everywhere,
See, it is inherently subscription offers a deep advantage to the consumer. Imagine a time when you had to pay 16,000 rupees to buy a Microsoft license when you were buying a laptop. Today, it's a yearly price. So it makes the consumer life very, very simple. Of course, because of the fact that we do not know how to handle so much of subscriptions, we are getting a bit confused and all that.
It's a new industry, like a lot of players are getting there.
So see, typically consumers emerge. So if you will pick up, I remember when I was young, that point in time, having a credit card was a very big thing. It almost showed that, oh, you have arrived, you have a credit card. Then what happened? So when I moved to Bombay and suddenly, I could go for some 6-7 credit cards. At one point in time, I have 7 credit cards and I've completely messed myself, and then perhaps I found a solution, right? So in my opinion, credit card adds certain advantage. I have one of it. And similarly, I feel as long as subscription as a product offers value to the users, people will subscribe. Products will change here and there depending on how the utility, they look at utility. But fatigue actually builds a solution over a period of time, is what is my personal experiences with especially the
It's like an antibody. Over a stretch of period of time, it will. Okay, so Swetha, I want you to bring in the language angle to it. Yeah. There is enough data and research to show that a large chunk of the subscription market is driven by English users, right? And specifically English. So that's why if any subscription number that you see, there's a large representation of South India. Yeah. Hindi is usually low, same for other Indian languages. So have you, with all the publishers you have worked with, have you guys done any experimentation that has sort of given you a better idea as to why subscription is not working really well when it comes to Indian languages?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we've seen, I think one thing that we have to look from an India perspective, right? India has like so many languages, like people talking and, discussing things in so many different languages, different dialects, right? Now, when it comes to different languages, the different users who talk in these different languages, I think it's totally different, right? Like what you think, what are you looking at, and all of that stuff. Like each language has a different kind of an audience, each language. So I think one of the things that we've tried experimenting with a lot of these publishers who are a part of the program is how can you try and think of a particular, say for example, if it's a South Indian publisher and they were already focusing on English subscriptions, right, getting English subscriptions, English subscribers, how can they try and look at creating a different new vertical that is specifically catered to a particular language audience? What is it? Trying to find out, doing multiple researches, experiment, feedback surveys with users, and then trying to go in for a subscription model specifically for that language. I think that is something that we've tried with a lot of publishers, which kind of worked well in launching a new vertical specifically catered to that particular language or dialect.
Correct, Mix. So we have 5 minutes to go. I quickly want, so this is a question for all of you. Subscription or reader revenue is still largely a new skill set. And in general, I think most news organizations struggle with a very high attrition rate, right? Because young people, when they're looking to join news organization, they're aspiring for editorial roles, right? No one is aspiring to work on product or business. At least from what I know, I may be wrong, maybe Hindu and Indian Express are getting very different people. But since all of you are fairly experienced and all of you are running teams, and I see some young people in the crowd, what are the kind of qualities you look for in people, right? Because again, this is a skill set that's new. So it's not like you can hire someone who's worked, say, like for 3-4 years on subscription. So when we're looking at a resume of a young person, someone who's out of college, or someone who has just 2-3 years of experience, what are the qualities or attitude that you're looking at that you think works in a subscription team, or to figure out or address subscription fatigue?
Let me start. So the first subscription manager that I hired, when I was interviewing him, he was not a reader of newspaper. He never subscribed. 4 experiences before he came for the interview, he was an utter failure. Okay. And after 1 hour of really going through this interview process, what I realized about him was that he had a very high resilience. And that was the reason we hired him. He proved to be one of the most successful subscription manager we had hired, right? So it's very, very important in an industry where nobody knows what will succeed, that people should be very comfortable with failures. So I think when we hire, we will definitely look at a person who has a resilience, who is ready to experiment. And in experimentation, what succeeds is something which is absurd. Most of the time would be the one which will have some potential. So in an interview, I can typically ask a person, what do you think about this orange sky in a painting? And you have to see, like, because if that person is very, very negative about it, in that case, perhaps they will not be ready to test tough ideas, right? So resilience is the single most important thing which we try to look at. Second thing is that comfort with the experimentation and comfort with the failure. Because still my biggest difficulty with the team is whenever I have a monthly meeting 1-to-1, I ask them that how many experiments you did, how many were your failures. And invariably the successes are more than failures, which means that we have not done a good job enough right now, and still people are scared of failure. So this is
so resilience and tenacity.
Absolutely, I agree with Pradeep, and I think resilience and then also people management skills, right? In an industry where it's not product first, it's rather content first. So editors have that ultimate say. So trying to make changes to the product in order to get people to subscribe, so it also gets very difficult. So for me, I think I would always look someone who actually can, manage conflicts, can have an open conversation and figure out a solution where content will always be the king, but then at the same time, we have to experiment, like Pradeep said, right, with product. So how to get to that sweet spot? Someone who is, able to manage those people and those conflicts.
So people management.
Yeah.
Nandu?
Yeah, so all of the above. and I think, I'm saying this because I lost a very good editorial resource because I was using her to help me with subscription. And she told me that this is not what I want to do, But I think for upcoming journalists, this is a great skill set to have. And I'm not talking about Excel sheets or data or anything. It is, and I've been a journalist for over 2 decades now. Journalists don't really care about the reader, right? We care about our story, our headlines, and all of that. We really don't think about who's finally going to read the story. That is the skill set we need to develop now. Because you literally need to be able to map every reader against every story or every feature that we make, every product that we make. How will, who will use it? How will they use it? That understanding, if you have, then I think you'll be successful in the subscription journey, because finally we have to really take the reader or your consumer seriously. I think that's a skill set a lot of journalists or upcoming journalists should start, looking at reader behavior.
So mapping user needs and
reader behavior, I would say, because that ends up with a lot of data and everything. But if you don't understand the reader, if you're not a reader yourself, it's just Excel sheets and numbers for you, right? Like, how do you then say that, okay, this equals that in real life, right? This equals that kind of reader, right? So that is the learning I think we need to start inculcating in young journalists.
Yeah, I think +1 to all of them. Resilience is, of course, one of the most important. Second is, having a positive mindset. Like, they should be knowing that, yes, there will be multiple failed attempts, but how can they keep trying on different new experiments and, try and work out on that and then, succeed in that. So I think having that mentality is very important. And yeah, I think that's it from my end.
And there's no problem, at least we have not faced any problem in attracting talent right now. Maybe like Hindu is a strong, powerful
brand.
You're
just showing off, Pradeep.
But the team which we have is one of really a good team. We have a lot of IITs. And that was one of the reasons why company wanted to hire was, the company's attitude was that let's not say we didn't succeed because we didn't hire the great talent. So company went ahead, hired people from IITs, IIM, some international colleges, and the larger idea and some of the really bright mind, I can very surely tell you all of them are way brilliant than myself, what I was at their age, right? So this is what I feel like. So one thing which we are very, very sure about it, if we fail, we will not fail because we did not hire good people. So attracting people till now not has been a challenge. And we have been able to build a great team, but still they are not they are not ready for as many failures as we would want them to have. That is the challenge.
Correct. So we are bang on time, so we'll quickly take questions so that we can wrap up in time. Yeah.
Thank you all. I just had a quick question. In the US, the PBS or the New York Times or all of these outlets, a lot of their subscription campaigns are around a sense of civic duty. Duty around paying for news and paying for goods which are keeping you informed as a civic or as a good citizen. That doesn't seem to be the case here, or at least that doesn't seem to work in India. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think campaigns like that can work? And if not, what are the limitations?
Can I quickly answer that? Are you a Newslaundry reader by any chance? So for last 11 years, we have argued that when the public pays, the public is served. And when the advertisers pay, the advertisers are served. For the longest time, we didn't have any paywall. For the longest time, we didn't have any subscriber exclusive benefit. And I think people largely subscribed because they believed in independent media, because they believe that we need organizations that are reader funded. So at least that's what our experience has been. I know the kind of campaigns that we are talking about, but I think independent media does run those kind of campaigns, which are largely on emotive values and democratic values. But yeah, I will let Nandu and everyone else on the panel answer that.
I'll let Pradeep go first.
So see, we are very lucky that, with a brand with 145 years of legacy, somewhere we stand for some values. So when we started subscription in February 2019, we were giving 30 days free trial to people before deciding to pay. 84% of the people paid on day 0, the day they were registering. Nobody wanted to take any free trial because they said, what 30 days? This brand is there from last 140 years. Like, boss, that much trust I need to have. So in our case, what happens is, in a legacy media organization, life is slightly more simple because you stand for some values. Your reader, you have a certain introduction to the reader, and reader decides whether you stand for democratic values or you don't stand for democratic values, and decision making is easier. I think for the digital natives, life may be more complex because they have to really first establish a body of work to really say that yes, they are, this is some kind of a work which we are doing, and then perhaps that trust develops, and perhaps then the course of then the subscription cycle falls in place. But legacy players, life might be easier, at least in this context.
So again, I'll let him go first because I know he'll answer half of it. I guess it applies for Express also, and along with that, we do some messaging of that type where we are more highlighting the value of what we do, but I think ensuring that the promise of your brand goes through. And again, you need to do that more with the younger generation because you have been around for so long. There have been people, you will have a lot of core readers who have also been around for so long. They don't need to be told that. And they are the people who, as Pradeep said, just buy on day one. Like, for us, our highest selling products are our most costliest products. Like, because that is the conversion of the trust that you have with your core audience. But you need to still communicate the value to the younger audience, to the people who are trying to bring in. And then stick to that value, and deliver to that on that promise on a daily basis.
Correct. I think someone had a question at the front. Yeah, there.
Hi. So as the news subscription market saturates more, do you think it makes more sense to have like microtransactions, like pay 5 rupees for an article, rather than say an annual subscription? Like, it does, like, because annual subscriptions are expensive, and as you said, India is a price-sensitive market. So
I think I can answer that.
Sure.
So I personally, the organizations I have worked with, we have experimented that. So that I think in itself, at least that's how I see it. That in itself is not a model. It becomes a gateway to subscription where you let user read 1 or 2 articles so that they can experiment, that they can test that how comfortable they are with subscription. So yes, it definitely works, but yeah, there's a long way to go for sure.
Let me answer the saturation point. See, according to RNI, Registrar of Newspaper of India, this is print product, there are 150,000 publications registered with RNI at this point in time. According to them, every day 23 crore newspapers are sold in this country every day. 38 crore products are sold on a whatever is there, like suppose it's a weekly that. So see, where is the saturation discussion right now? We are not even scratched the surface, right? So currently we are fighting. Why should I pay? We need to reach a status, whom should I pay? And this is the journey which we all are in together, right? So if together all of us try to solve for this answer, and see, another great part of the newspaper part is the newspaper is a family product. It's not a personalized product. So if the 23 crore number is wrong, and whatever number you have in mind, 10 crore, 12 crore, whatever you want to put, multiply with 4, because the digital is a personalized product. So 400, and if I take say a 12 crore 50% of RNI number, then I have a 480 million market for subscription or digital product, right? So it's a very long way ahead as far as the saturation is concerned.
Okay, we can quickly sneak in one more question. Yeah, at the back.
I am a news junkie. I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, I subscribe to New York Times, and I subscribe to the Washington Post. What I find, and I also subscribe to, by the way, Indian Express, the app of which I was trying to log in for the 6th time in the last 2 months. I cannot log in.
Prashant, there are apps where login works really well.
Well, it goes through OTPs and all of that, and then it just, what I found when I could log in and I get the e-newspaper of the Indian Express, I just find that it is the same thing that used to come in the paper form. There is virtually no innovation on the digital platform that I see. But when I go to New York Times, there are very interesting formats that they experiment with, that they come up with. There are pictorials, there are pictorial explainers, they do all kinds of visual investigations. Whereas I find that in Indian newspapers, it's like, ye pehle paper mein milta tha, ab ye aap screen pe bhi dekh sakte ho. So why would I want to then, if I'm going to be consuming news on a tablet or a phone or a laptop, and like you said that, the saturation point has still not come. I think there is a huge opportunity. So where is that innovation happening? Are you attempting that innovation, in your newspapers? Are you working with new kind of formats of presentation where people can sort of enjoy and bring alive a story, rather than just text and maybe one picture, headline, text, picture? I mean, it's the same format and it's boring, which is why I think the digital native platforms, they are beginning to find their space in this market, and there doesn't seem to be, one is subscribing to Newslaundry, one is subscribing to The Wire, and to The Scroll. And one doesn't mind that because, they'll have a little video embedded somewhere, or they'll have other kinds of interesting formats that they'll experiment with. I know that Newslaundry does a lot of comic books they've tried in the past, and, animations and all of those sorts of things through their journey. I mean, why are legacy media, I hate the word legacy, but why isn't print trying to do the same thing? Or are you trying to do it and we're just not able to see it?
If I give the example of Express, we have been innovating and experimenting with a lot of things over the years. It is just that we do so much of everything else that maybe it gets sort of buried in the experience of getting there. But New York Times has 12 million subscribers. I'm sure when we have 12 million subscribers, we will also give you a better experience than New York Times at half the price.
Just to add on to that, right? And this is the reason why it's very important for news publishers to also keep conducting feedback surveys, to understand what are the user preferences, habits, what do they like to read. And that is when they'll understand that, okay, this is what they like, or this is what's missing in, my product, and I need to work on that. So yeah, just adding on to that.
So let me start. See, we started something called Mojo Stories, which is mobile journalism stories. This started about 1.5 years back. So initially, we were not able to get about, say, 6-7 stories every week, and every week we have to select 3 stories for each of the brand. Today, there is a dedicated resource which puts about 2 or 3 days just shortlisting the amount of mobile journalism which we are doing. In mobile, here to qualify it for a story, it needs to have at least 2 elements, either a video or a infographics or some like a pic show or whatever it is. So there are multiple elements, right? So I'm quite surprised that you have not been able to discover, say, a great work Indian Express does on audio, which is there, because I am also a subscriber of Indian Express. I find their journalism outstanding. I feel they do a great job. They do really good, videos. They do really good podcasts. Maybe because, we also try to learn from them. I see them more intensively than perhaps what you are seeing. But I personally feel they are doing a great job. And of course, we keep learning from each other. So maybe, like what, as Nandu said, that the challenge is about, showcasing, because there is so much of content. Maybe that's the area where we all need to learn, because as a consumer, if you have not been able to find so much of great work which they are doing, then perhaps we have failed somewhere. But believe me, there's a lot of good work happening, the kind of data stories which are happening, podcasts that are happening, newsletters that are happening, videos we all are doing. There's a lot of work which is going on.
And I think, in terms of format, right? So format also, if you have not seen it anywhere, web story is a new format. Swetha,
exactly.
So that is again something that a lot of organizations have introduced. So that is again trying to engage younger audience and people who may not want to spend a lot of time reading through the text. So there are new formats, but they're still on experimentation stage, because I think all of us are trying to figure out what people like. And then to really get that answer, we need enough data, like Nandu said, right? So if someone has 12 million subscribers, they have multiply by probably 5-6 times the data, right? For us, it's probably we are dealing with such small numbers. To get something significantly substantial is still a challenge. So,
and to add to it, New York Times is 11 years on subscription journey. All of us are still younger. So that's also.
And
yeah, definitely they are a great source to learn. We all of us really look up to inspiration from them.
And I guess to start with, we have to let you log in so that you can experience what we do. And I'll get back to you on that right away.
Great. I think we are almost out of time. So thank you, everyone. We'll
Thank you.
wrap up the session.
thank you.